Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Hungaroring. Welcome back to the Clio Cup Series for the second time this weekend. Of course, if you joined us yesterday, you will have seen a brilliant race between Gabriele Torelli, David Pouget, Anthony Girardo, just to name three. There was brilliant battles from the very start to the very end of the race. My name's Jack Worrell, and I'll be running you through all of the action here this afternoon. The final race of the weekend, the second race of the weekend for the Clio Cup Series. Slightly warmer today than it was yesterday, although not quite as humid, so I'm not sure whether the drivers would prefer that or not. I'm sure the cars are starting to struggle in the heat here at Hungaroring. But if you are new to the Clio Cup Series, it's a series made up of almost 5 championships. You've got Clio Cup France, Clio Cup Spain, Clio Cup Italy, Clio Cup Mid-Europe, and Clio Cup Europe itself. So what you can do is race in 2 national championships, so whether that be Clio Cup France and Clio Cup Spain, or you can race in 1 national championship and then the European Championship itself, of which we've got a real range of drivers out on the grid from all of the series that Renault run and under the Clio banner. So we've got drivers from all over Europe joining us this weekend, filling out the grid. 25 cars we have on the grid this weekend. Drivers to watch: David Pouget, of course, starting from pole position. He's gone faster today than anybody has gone all weekend. Gabriele Torelli, very quick indeed after 2 back-to-back wins at Monza and then picking up more silverware at Spa. Torelli is definitely one to watch. Anthony Girardo, definitely one to watch as well. Somebody that's, I'm just having a look. We must have them on the grid. Nicolas Millat starting in 8th place, the outside of the 4th row of the grid. One of the drivers that is usually up there, consistently scoring points, but struggling this weekend is Nicolas Millat. Yesterday, due to contact, he found himself dropping down the order. We do also have classes as well, so you will either be in the Racers' Cup, the Challengers' Cup, or none of the above. Into the pit lane, by the looks of it, is that car number 60? That is Leonardo Arduini, and everybody's coming round, or everyone's supposed to be coming round onto the grid, I believe. Leonardo's supposed to start in 20th place, but into the pit lane he has come. We'll keep an eye on him. But you will either be in the Racers' Cup, or the Challengers' Cup, or none of the above. To be in the Racers' Cup, you need to be over 26 years old, having less than 10 meetings motorsport experience, or have never achieved a better result than 5th in the overall standings. And to be in the Challengers' Cup, you need to be aged between 16 and 25 on January the 1st, 2023, or for those drivers that are over 26 years old, you must have a minimum of 10 Clio Cup meetings under your belt. So we've got another car in the pit lane as well, Guillaume Mayo into the pit lane. So following Leonardo Arduini, we'll have to have a look a little further down the pit lane and just through the pit lane and carrying back on again. So opting for an extra warming up lap by the looks of that. Stationary on the grid and already being chatted to by his team is Gabriele Torelli. So clearly opting for the 1 lap lesser this time. Joining us on the grid, we've also got Daniel Nuffelier, as well as Thomas Pekar. Thomas Pekar yesterday, the man we're looking at the moment, the bright orange 101 machine. Great race, all race log. I think he spent most of his time in the top 6 and was he's been 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and then down to 6th, and then it was all the way back up and all the way back down again. It was a brilliant race for Thomas, so keep an eye out for himself. He's starting in 6th today, so already starting in a good spot. We've just got to see what Thomas Pekar can do in regards to potentially gaining a few further positions over the cars ahead. Just having a look down onto the grid, and there's just little bits of work being done on the cars, making sure they're race ready. All the cars, obviously, we keep mentioning that the racing is very, very close indeed, and that's because they all run a spec Clio Cup car. It's all every car on the grid is a Renault Clio RS5. And they've all got the same engine, all tuned very, very similarly. They've got 200 brake horsepower and 300 Newton meters of torque all through the front wheels. So they do, and they don't really weigh too much either. So it really is well worth. It's a perfect formula for a race car, I should say. They weigh around about 1,025 kilos, excluding fuel and driver. So it is a hot little car. It doesn't weigh much, it's got a lot of power. It is on slick tyres, but of course all the weight is all over the front axle. So you'll see lots of drifting in these cars. But in theory, that is the way to drive them. Chatting to David Pouget yesterday, he was saying that if you drive it like a go-kart, you turn with the rear pretty much. So you want to be sideways through the corners, not enough to scrub speed, but just enough to keep that momentum up and keep the nose tucked into the corner. And it really does work. And of course, David Pouget, he knows what he's doing. He's on pole position today. So if he says that is the way to drive it, that well and truly is the way to drive it. Jumping onto the tail end of the grid is Gabor team. So we'll just have a few more cars to come round by the looks of that before we've made up the grid. Coming around, that's Pierre Brodot for Comte Racing Team. He's one of the Challengers Cup entrants. You can see in the rear window the Challengers Cup cars have a lime green, sort of a Dayglow green circle with a black C in the middle, and the racers have got a sort of Dayglow orange circle with a black R on the rear window. That's how you pick between the cars. The two cars coming towards us now, that's both the Shimps. That's Adrian and Alejandro. The way to pick between them is just the flashes. Obviously, one's got yellow flashes, one's got orange flashes. The first one of those two, that is Adrian Schimpf, is silver green with the yellow flashes. And then, of course, his brother Alejandro, he's in the blue and green car with the orange flashes. David Pouget on the grid, ready to get this race underway, I am sure, but we've just got to wait and see. We'll see how long it's going to take for everybody to get into their various positions. We're supposed to be getting going at around about half past 5 local time. So if you're watching in the UK, obviously that'll be 4:30. And there's a brilliant drone shot that we're getting there. The drone's been producing some brilliant camera work all weekend. But we are sort of bookending the weekend here at Hungaroring. It's been a brilliant weekend. The paddock is slowly starting to thin out. You see cars disappearing into the back of trailers and various other bits of the like. But Renault have got to stick around just for a little bit longer, as we are the final racing session of the weekend. There is Gabriele Torelli for protagonists. Gabriele knows what he's doing. He's very, very quick driver. Of course, like I mentioned, 2 wins on home turf. And also he's spent a little bit of time on the podium this year, let's put it that way. He's no stranger to the podium, is Gabriele. So starting on the inside of the front row of the grid, in theory, if everybody sets off exactly the same, it will be David Pouget that arrives at turn 1 first. But all will be revealed when it comes to the checkered flag in 25 minutes plus 1 lap. So much like yesterday, 25-minute race, and as soon as the clock ticks to 0, they finish their lap they are on and do only 1 more. So if yesterday's anything to go by, we are in for a brilliant final race of the weekend. You see, everything has all been set up down on the grid. The safety car driver is getting his helmet on, so I'd imagine we will be going racing very, very shortly. Team members and crews and various cooling aids and tools and whatever else may be on the grid, I'm sure will be asked to leave very shortly, so we can send the cars out on their green flag warming up lap and then go racing for the final time here this weekend at Magny-Cours, at Hungaroring, pardon me. Speaking of Magny-Cours, of course, the Clio Cup have already been there this year, so it's 13 race meetings the Clio Cup Series have. It's not necessarily always the same cars. Some weekends have got just Clio Cup Italia. Some weekends have got Clio Cup France and Spain. Some have, much like at Spa just a little while ago, a couple of weeks ago, they had Clio Cup Europe, Clio Cup Mid-Europe, Clio Cup Italy, and Clio Cup France all at the same meeting. So a very, very, very busy meeting there. But of course here this weekend at Hungaroring, we just have Clio Cup Europe and Clio Cup Mid-Europe. We did go to Magny-Cours on May the 7th. And definite ones to watch will be Nürburgring and Red Bull Ring, July the 29th and 30th for Nürburgring, and September the 9th and 10th for the Red Bull Ring. When you see Clio Cup Europe and Clio Cup Mid-Europe retake to the circuit, but they are also joined by Clio Cup France and Clio Cup Italy, respectively. Onto the grid here at Hungaroring, David Pouget lines up on pole position with a 2-minute 5.044 ahead of Gabriele Torelli. Row 2 of the grid is Anthony Girardot and Pierre Bredot, followed by Luca Franca and Thomas Pekar starting in 6th place. Then it's Jerzy Spinkovic and Nicolas Milin, followed by Adrian Schimpf and Jacopo Jimenez. And it's Gabor Team and Christian Ricciarini starting in 12th place. So on to row 7 of the grid, we've got Alejandro Schimpf, Lantos Sabolks, followed by Nikola Milkovic and Damiano Puccetti. And Guillaume Mayo starts in 17th, and he has Andreas Stucki for company in 18th. Followed then by René Stimets and Leonardo Arduini. Then it's Lionel Vigueur, followed by Benjamin Cuvas. Then it's Stefan Polderman and Henrik Seibel. There should just be one more car left on the grid, and it is Daniel Niffler at the very tail end, rounding out the 25-strong car grid. The safety car has gone out onto its sort of sighting lap, so I'd imagine in a few moments' time the crews will be instructed to leave the circuit, and we will be able to go racing for the final time this weekend here at Hungaroring. But on to, obviously, we were talking about Nürburgring and Red Bull Ring, definitely ones to watch. Paul Ricard on October the 7th and October the 8th. Paul Ricard is a brilliant event that you'll definitely want to be watching, because that's Clio Cup France, Clio Cup Italy and Clio Cup Spain all come together on the same weekend. So well and truly worth a watch on that one. Make sure you check in. And then, of course, the season finale at the very end of the year, November the 11th and 12th. That's Clio Cup Europe, Clio Cup France and Clio Cup España, all at Catalonia. So well and truly worth a watch. Of course, this is round 5 this weekend. And then in almost exactly a month's time, July the 15th and 16th, we go to Misano. Clio Cup Italy on its own go to Misano. So keep an eye out for that one. Make sure you tune back in later on into July, as that is well and truly worth a watch. You can see crews slowly starting to leave the grid, which can only mean one thing. We are going racing once again. At the very front of the grid, on the left-hand side of your shot, that's Simon de Villepoix. He's just sat at the front of the order. He's, of course, the coordinator for the Clio Cup Series, doing a brilliant job. Of course, these events are always running as smoothly and seamlessly as possible. Having a quick chat with David Pouget. So we'll see what happens between David Pouget and Gabriele Torelli. Well and truly, those two have been a sparring duo throughout the entire season so far. Anthony Girardot and Pierre Bredot just sat behind. You could slowly start to see those guys work their way onto the tail end of the leaders. Of course, Thomas Pekar and Nicolas Milin starting 6th and 8th respectively. Thomas Pekar very quick yesterday. Nicolas Milin somewhat off the pace in qualifying. Hopefully he's picked up the pace a little bit for the race. Adrian Schimpf yesterday, a brilliant result, finishing in 6th place. He starts 9th in the 113 machine. So there's definite drivers, I wouldn't necessarily say out of position, but slightly further down the order than you'd usually expect. So there's a few drivers we need to keep our eyes on for their efforts working their way back up through the order. And your hot spots here, of course, we saw a few cars at turn 2, so there's a long run down to turn 1. Before it's quite a tight right-hander before you go downhill once again into the slightly longer left-hander at turn 2. We saw a few cars backwards, and that's where we saw the predominant amount of contact at turn 2, and then heading through the quick right and quick left at turns 6 and 7. A very tight chicane. We saw a few drivers having to cut the chicane on multiple occasions yesterday. So I'm sure some track limits penalties will be applied in this one. I know they definitely were in qualifying. So as the rest of the grid just works its way back into the pit lane, we will be able to send the cars on their green flag warming up lap. It will be the final race of the weekend very shortly getting underway. Cars slam into first gear. David Pouget leads them away ahead of Gabriele Torelli. Anthony Girardot and Pierre Brodot on row 2 of the grid. Then we have Luca Franca and Thomas Pekar, row 3, Jerzy Spinkovic and Nicolas Milan, row 4, and Adrian Schimpf and Jacopo Jimenez, your first 10 starters. Although don't rule out any sort of mid-pack battling yesterday. It's a very busy place to be, but if you can work your way through, as we saw Nicolas Milan do, he got knocked down to, I think it was sort of 15th or 16th place. And come the end of the race, has carved his way back up to 8th, so very impressive drive from Nicolas Milan yesterday. So if he can do something similar in this one, of course, starting in 8th place, there he is. He was working the tyres hard there, rolling the car onto the rear axle, just doing what he can to try and force some temperature into the Michelin tyre. David Pouget doing much the same. Through turn 4, you can see the rear end of the car is just thinking about maybe going very slightly sideways. It gets a bit more under control towards the latter stages of the race once the fuel is slowly starting to come out, but the tyres are well and truly up to temperature. We saw Adrian Schimpf yesterday hitting the brakes so hard the car was squirming all over the place, heading into turn 1, and just about managed to get the car slowed down again. That is the commitment that we see from the Clio Cup drivers. Leonardo Arduini starting in 20th place. Of course, he's done that extra lap on the tyres. So whilst they are a lap older, they are potentially going to hold a little bit more heat off the line. So we'll have to wait and see what happens in that regard. Very, very pretty liveries out on circuit. One of the favourites just in the background of shot there. 125 Jerzy Spinkovic in the sort of black Dayglow orange and a white unique racing machine. David Pouget, I'd say arguably he's probably got to slow down, because if he can still work the tyres as hard as he can, but if he gets to the grid, he's still got to wait for everybody else to form up and join him on the grid. So all of that time he's sat there, all the heat from the brakes and the tyres really starting to dissipate. So he's only more or less the only thorn in his side at the moment. He's got to, there you go, he's trying to bunch the field up, I think, just to minimise any sort of wait time and maximise the temperature of the brakes and the tyres, and make sure he's still got a little bit left come the start of the race. So as everyone's just working their way onto the grid, I'm keeping my eye down on the grid. See once David Pouget has pulled into his pit slot. And David Pouget knows what he's doing from pole position. He's no stranger to being up near the front row of the grid. He's just got to make sure he nails the start. So if he spends a little bit too long sort of riding the clutch, or sits a little bit further back in his pit box, which he's doing, he's sat further back than what you'd expect, because now Gabriele Torelli has moved forward, and it's perfect parking from Gabriele Torelli. So he's already gained, what, 2, maybe 3 feet over David Pouget off the start of the race. And you can see from this camera angle, at least, that Gabriele is pointing slightly towards the outside of the circuit. So if he gets that good start, he can come over and cover off any sort of attack from David Pouget. There is Benjamin Kovas, just working his way into the order. 3, 4, 5 lights here at Hungaroring, and we go racing for the final time this weekend. It's a good start from David Pouget, a poor start from Gabriele Torelli. That means Anthony Girardot has managed to work his way up, potentially through and past into 2nd place, but a dream start from David Pouget. He will try and hold the inside and hold the lead on the run up towards turn 1, all over the road, squirming on the brakes is Girardot, just in any sort of attempt to get the car slowed down. Pierre Brodot and Thomas Pekar are fighting away, but it is still just about David Pouget in the lead of the race. He's trying to capitalise on the pair of drivers behind him, battling away, contact once again. Gabriele Torelli gets forced wide on towards the painted surface, gets the car stopped, and loses, what, 2 or 3, maybe 4 positions. There was a little bit of contact in the background as well. Hopefully all is well in the mid-pack, but for the moment, David Pouget continuing to pull away. Now it is Anthony Girardot sat there in 2nd place, followed by Thomas Pekar, Pierre Brodot, Nicolas Milan, Gabriele Torelli, Jerzy Spinkovic in 7th place. Then it's Adrian Schimpf, Gabor Team, and Alejandro Schimpf rounding out your top 10. for the moment, David Puget has got everything he needs for a good race at the moment. There's a little bits of dust being kicked up in the background, but here is the incident a little earlier on. What did I say? Turn 2 is that hot spot. So Gerardo was there, whether Gabriele Torelli knew it or not. And granted, at some point they did have to try and make the corner, and then it was almost happened in unison 3 times into the same corner. So somebody locked up and went very wide indeed. Somebody sideways in the road, somebody else sideways in the road. It was all going wrong. One of the drivers getting affected by that, Stefan Polderman. Unfortunately, after it looked like he was on for potentially a good result, but the recovering Torelli under pressure from Nicolas Milin a little bit further down the order. David Puget, however, 1.5 seconds into the lead for the race at the moment, so a good start from David, capitalising on all of the mistakes behind. But Gerardo still doing what he can to run away from Peccar and at the same time try and catch David Puget, which is working at the moment because Thomas Peccar has got Pierre Bredot all over his tail. Then it's Gabriele Torelli and Nicolas Milin. Behind those two, you've got Jerzy Spinkovic and Adrian Schimpf. They're side by side. Adrian Schimpf is on the inside in the run-up towards turn 1, gets the car slowed down and gets that position made. There's more swapping and changing a little bit further down the order. Looks like Damiano Pacetti, one of those drivers, is just trying to pick up a couple of places in the early stages of the race. Fastest lap of the race, unsurprisingly so, goes to David Puget. Yet more contact. I think that's Torelli again. Whether that was turning into Pierre Bredot, I don't know, or Pierre Bredot locking up into Gabriele Torelli. Not 100% sure. I'm sure we'll get a replay at some point, but David Puget on the run-up through turn 4, still being chased down by Anthony Gerardo, still 1.5 seconds clear in the lead of the race. Thomas Peccar has got Gabriele Torelli all over his tail. Pierre Bredot under ever more pressure from Nicolas Milin. Adrian Schimpf, having last lap got through and past Jerzy Spinkovic. He's under pressure from Jerzy once again, pushing through turns 6 and 7, pardon me. That's Gabriele Torelli, desperate to try and work his way through and past Thomas Peccar. You can see them fighting away in the background. Gabriele Torelli, I guess he can see red. He's annoyed with the earlier incident and wants to catch back up to the top drivers. The car on the road go very, very sideways, bouncing over all of the curbs there. And Nicolas Milin, everybody was doing it, but Nicolas Milin's car just maybe slightly more stiffly sprung, I think, was making the car look rather uncomfortable over all of the curbs. David Puget is still maintaining a fairly healthy 1.5 second lead margin. Anthony Gerardo still sat in P2, not getting any closer. However, he is pulling away from Thomas Peccar as he's got his hands full with Gabriele Torelli. Pierre Bredot is still under pressure from Nicolas Milin, but not quite as close as we've seen them so far. Jerzy Spinkovic getting attacked by the Schimpfs, having last lap managed to lose that place to Adrian Schimpf. He now has Alejandro Schimpf with his lights on and slowly getting closer. David Puget, another fastest lap with a 2 minutes 171. Alejandro Schimpf desperate to work his way in towards the top 8, not too far away from Jerzy Spinkovic at the moment. David Puget still leading. He's taken another 10th away from Gerardo, so exactly what he needs to be doing. There's a little bit of debris in the middle of the circuit, so the drivers will have to keep an eye out on that one. Through sharp back through turn 3 and up towards turn 4 goes Pierre Bredot. Nicolas Milin this time, a little look, couldn't quite force the door open. Torelli still all over the tail of Thomas Peccar. On the run through turn 5, Torelli gets shown the outside. Can he cut back to the inside? No, there's contact between the pair of them, only nose-to-tail contact, so nothing too effective as of yet. However, Torelli lights ablaze, late on the brakes, up the inside, position made, up onto 2 wheels, does make the chicane. Thomas Peccar had to cut the chicane, and now he's trying to keep that position. I'm sure the Chronicle, of course, wouldn't be too happy with that one. He does concede that place, so Gabriele Torelli up into 3rd place now, and he will try and give chase to Gerardo. I'm sure he will bring with him Thomas Peccar, Pierre Bredot, and Nicolas Milin. Then it is Adrian Schimpf, who's still got Spinkovic just sat behind. Sorry, it's Alejandro Schimpf that's just sat behind Spinkovic now and is trying to get there, but Adrian Schimpf on the tail of Nicolas Milin, just trying to close up a little bit. Up the inside now, Pierre Bredot, a little bit of a look on Thomas Pekar, and also defending from Nicolas Milan at the same time. David Pouget still around about 1.5 seconds up the road. We've got an incident being investigated between cars 3 and 11, so that's Daniel Nifouleur and car number 11. I can't see a car number 11 out there, unfortunately, so I'm not sure what's happened in that regard. However, Girardeau, he's got the fastest lap of the race, and he's getting closer. 1.5 seconds was the lead gap a couple of laps ago. It is now down to 1.2, so David Pouget losing ever more time to Anthony Girardeau. A little bit of a lock-up there from Pouget. He does get the car turned in. Torelli's has slowly started to escape the grasp of Thomas Pekar. Pierre Bradot in 5th place. He's somehow holding off Nicolas Milan behind, who can't really hang around for too much because Spinkovic all over his tail. And Spinkovic is has just built up enough of a margin. He doesn't really need to worry about Alejandro Schimpf to the same regard he had to just a couple of laps ago. 1.2 seconds is indeed that lead margin now, so 3/10 lost on the lap prior. David Pouget will continue to just lap as quickly and as consistently as possible, in the hopes that the remaining 17 minutes plus 1 lap disappear as quickly as possible. Thomas Pekar is really the head of the snake at the moment, because he's got Pierre Bradot just sat behind. Nicolas Milan not far away at all. Adrian Schimpf, the first of the Schimpfs, sat there in 7th place. Jerzy Spinkovic almost on the very tail end of that order. And Alejandro Schimpf not really far away either. Nicolas Milan, he's desperate to get by Pierre Bradot, and he now realises he can't really take too many liberties with it because Adrian Schimpf is getting closer. The lead gap down to a second now. Will this be another fastest lap from Girardeau? Last time through a 2-minute 5.893. This time through we're back into the 2:06s, but another quick lap nonetheless. Still a 10th.5 quicker than David Pouget on the lap prior. However, having got by Thomas Pekar just a lap ago, Gabriele Torelli with the fastest lap of the race now, a 2-minute 5.541. So a very fast lap indeed. 2-minute 5.541 would have been enough for 6th on the grid this morning. Of course, they will be running quali setups, but in this one they're running race setups with race fuel. Very, very quick indeed from Gabriele Torelli. He's doing what he can to catch back up to the tail end of Anthony Girardeau and maybe think about repaying the favour almost. Here you can see the confirmation of the fastest lap, 2-minute 5.541. That's what, 3.5, 4/10 quicker than anybody else out on circuit has gone so far in this race. But David Pouget, after losing a bit of time to Anthony Girardeau, he's holding that gap at a second for the moment. But up the inside, Nicolas Milan having to cut the chicane is Pierre Bradot. Pierre on the inside once again through turn 8, just about manages to cut across the nose of Nicolas Milan. Clever driving there from Pierre. That just meant he can remain in front for a little while longer. He's holding on to that 5th place. And Pierre, it is quite an important place to hold on to, not only for points overall, but he is in the lead of the Challengers Cup. Adrian Schimpf, who is just behind Nicolas Milan at the moment, he is also a Challengers Cup driver, so Pierre, it's in his best interest to keep that car between himself and Adrian Schimpf, but having to use all of the runoff area as Nicolas Milan almost forces him wide. Adrian Schimpf late on the brakes, looks to the inside. Bradot still just about there. We were 3 wide momentarily. Now Nicolas Milan's going to be compromised on the run through the final corner, as he can't run quite as wide as Adrian Schimpf is there. But Pierre Bradot, he's got to try and manage this race as best he can. 14 minutes plus 1 lap remaining. Across the line comes the battle once again. Side by side is Nicolas Milan and Adrian Schimpf. Adrian Schimpf getting closer and closer and closer and working his way by. By the time they get to turn 1, late on the brakes up the inside, is he going to get it slowed down? Very nearly up the inside he goes. And Adrian Schimpf from 7th to 5th place, and he's taken the lead of the Challengers Cup. So cracking stuff from Adrian Schimpf, but they're still side by side. Pierre Bradot back up the inside on the run through turn 2. It will be the outside for turn 3. By that point, they all drop back into single file. All of this battling is bringing Jerzy Spinkovic back into the fold. So too is Alejandro Schimpf. He's not far away at all either now. For the moment, Pierre Bradot, he's doing everything he can. He's trying to cut across the nose of Adrian Schimpf. There was a little bit of contact between them. This is the final race of the weekend, so they've got a little bit of time, almost a month, to repair the cars if they cause anything. So Pierre Bradot, again, doing his best just to cut the nose of Adrian Schimpf. Nicolas Milin in the background, a tap there from Jerzy Spinkovic, which drops Nicolas Milin down. Late on the brakes, Alejandro Schimpf couldn't get the car slowed down, uses all of the exit road. So too does Jerzy Spinkovic once again. So we're still side by side on the run through turns 10 and 11. Alejandro Schimpf on the inside once again. Will he get that position made? He's had to force Spinkovic wide. The battle, or the trio up the road, remain as they are, but there were 3 wide on the run in towards turn 12. Alejandro Schimpf and Spinkovic still side by side. All of the drivers using pretty much all of the runoff at the moment. Luca Franca not far away either. He's just sat behind alongside Gabor team. Also in there, we've not seen too much of him, is Jacopo Ximenez. He is there trying to pick up a couple of places as well. David Puget still 1.4 seconds in the lead of the race. He's pulled away a little bit from Gabriele Torelli. Anthony Girardo not far away at all. And it's Thomas Pekar, Pierre Bradot, Adrian Schimpf, Nicolas Milin, Alejandro Schimpf, Jerzy Spinkovic and Luca Franca. Alejandro Schimpf, he's trying to attack and defend all at the same time. 10-second time penalty for cars 1, 2, 5, 55 and 21. So 1, 2, 5, Jerzy Spinkovic has a penalty. Car number 55 of René Stiemetz has a penalty as well, 10-second penalty. And Stefan Polderman has a 10-second penalty. Funnily enough, all of those drivers on the same side of the grid. So whether there's some sort of correlation in that regard, I don't know. But for the moment, it's still all go towards the top end of the order. Nicolas Milin still on the tail of Adrian Schimpf. And it is Pierre Bradot just defending as best he can. Unfortunately, commentators' curse has befallen Jacopo Ximenez. As I mentioned him, he lost 2 places on the run through the first sector. Gabriele Torelli has worked his way up into 2nd place now, so he's through and past Girardo and taking time out of David Puget. We've got just under 11 minutes of the race remaining, so we could see a battle for the lead towards the very tail end of the order. Once again, using all of the track is Alejandro Schimpf. He was followed by Jerzy Spinkovic. Whether Jerzy knows he's got a penalty, I don't know. Of course, a 10-second penalty is probably not the best thing you want to round out your weekend. Pierre Bradot once again being pushed around turns 13 and 14 by Adrian Schimpf. So slowly growing ever more impatient is Adrian Schimpf. He wants that position. Getting closer on that lap once again was Gabriele Torelli. He took out 3 tenths of the lead. So Gabriele Torelli 3 tenths quicker than David Puget on the lap prior. Getting much, much closer once again. Adrian Schimpf late on the brakes into the back of Pierre Bradot. There's a bit of contact between the pair of them. They continue on, but Nicolas Milin, he's slowly starting to smell blood and trying to work his way into that battle once again and potentially pick up a couple of places. He dives on to the inside and remains the side of Pierre Bradot. Big, big lock-up from Adrian Schimpf. Unfortunately, it disappears out of shot, and we can't see exactly what happened to that battle. It remained as it was, but Adrian Schimpf has now dropped behind Nicolas Milin. And it means that battle of 3 is more or less become a battle of 2 at the moment. So Pierre Bradot has only got to worry about Nicolas Milin. Jerzy Spinkovic still with Alejandro Schimpf on his tail. Running slightly wide there is Gabor team. He's in no man's land. He's not got too many people to look to for help here, because Ricciarini is behind him, followed by Milkovic and Franca. Thomas Pekar under the radar performance once again, up there in 4th place. Just quick, clean and consistent laps is what is getting Thomas some very, very good results here. Up the inside, Milkovic, I think he cut the chicane, so he might have to give that position back to Luca Franca. Luca looks to take it himself and couldn't quite get the move done that time. The lead gap now down to 0.8 of a second, so Gabriele Torelli is well and truly getting closer to David Pouget in the lead. Gerardo isn't too far away either. You can imagine if Torelli and Pouget start battling, Gerardo isn't too far away if he wants to join in on that battle. It will be a bit of a stretch if Pekar wants to get in there. But there are our lead 3 through the final corner. 8 minutes remaining on the clock, plus 1 lap. So I can see us getting what, maybe 3 more timed laps, followed by the 4th mandatory extra. But in towards turn 1, you'd probably actually get 4 laps, including or excluding the extra one added at the end. David Pouget is still just about leading. This time more defensive than we've seen him is Pierre Brodot. Nicolas Milan looking to the outside, can't find a way through. David Pouget under ever more pressure. The gap is now down to 3/4 of a second, so 0.7 seconds. The run through turn 3 once again. Spinkovic still under pressure from Alejandro Schimpf. The pair of them getting caught by Gabor team. Gabor not too far away. He is bringing Ricciarini with him, but Gabor is well and truly part of that battle with Alejandro Schimpf and Spinkovic now. This time Nicolas Milan cuts to the inside on the exit of turn 5. It will be the inside for turn 6, the outside for turn 7. We'll see what he can do on the brakes. Can he get that position secured? Almost having to cut the chicane is Pierre Brodot. They remain side by side once again. Nicolas Milan on the very outside. Will he get the car slowed down before the corner? No, he won't. Into the side of Pierre Brodot, not once but twice. The big winner out of that is Adrian Schimpf. But Nicolas Milan left with very little to do. As soon as he touched the grass and was fired across the circuit, couldn't really do too much about avoiding that one and was almost forced wide in the first place. But the leader, David Pouget, under ever more pressure from Gabriele Torelli. We've got just over 6 minutes of the race remaining, and the lead gap is the closest we've seen it all race. So this is where Pouget's race really starts. He's raced for the most part throughout this race on his own, but this is what happened. So there was contact midway through the corner between Milan and Brodot, and then jumping on the brakes. You can see he locked up, did Nicolas Milan, desperately trying to avoid some sort of accident. So he was on the brakes once again, just doing what he can to make sure there's as little contact as possible, then got the moment collected up and carried on. But whether that accident has affected performance, I don't know. Back to the live pitch as we go, and it is David Pouget still leading Gabriele Torelli by a very, very small margin indeed. In the background, Gerardo not too far away, only a second off the tail end of Torelli. Alejandro Schimpf almost losing a place this time to Gabor team. They disappear out of shot. Gabor runs very, very wide indeed. However, it's wide enough because he's gone around the outside of Alejandro Schimpf. So Gabor team up into 8th place, and he will try and now hunt down Spinkovic. Drive through to car number 5, who caused that collision. So Nicolas Milan, after the incident with Pierre Brodot, he has been given a drive-through penalty. So he will obviously sacrifice a lot of time indeed with that one and drop a long, long way down the order. Of course, at some point throughout the race, we have lost Nifola. So unfortunately, Daniel Nifola will play no further part in this race. However, the lead battle between Pouget and Torelli, once again, as close as we've seen them, absolutely nose to tail. Wing mirror once again hanging off Torelli's car. I think that's the same mirror he did yesterday. I think, to be honest, the one that's currently hanging off the car, I think it's mainly held together with tape in the first place. So Torelli in dire need of of a new wing mirror throughout the weekend. But David Pouget across the line once again. And we will have time for 2 more laps on the timer. But it will be, in theory, 3 more laps once we've added that extra lap on at the end. So a little look to the inside, then to the outside, tried to switch back to the inside, and was forced to the outside was Torelli. They are still side by side. David Pouget on the outside this time on the run down towards turn 2. We know Torelli's confident on the brakes down here. David Pouget all the way around the outside. He will have to maybe look at a cutback, tries to carry the momentum to make sure he gets the inside for what is turn 3, and he might just about do it. No, he won't. Torelli into the lead of the race. Pouget has to sacrifice that one. But David Pouget, he gave it a damn good go. He was really trying to fight that and make sure he didn't lose that place, but Pouget down into 2nd place. Gerardo almost with them, sort of painfully close, not far away at all. It just needs a bit more muscling or a small mistake, and that will bring Gerardo into the mix. Thomas Pekar still sat there in 4th place, a little bit further on in the background. We'll have to wait and see when Nicolas Milan comes into the pit lane. I can't see him as on yet, so we'll have to wait and see when Nicolas comes into the pit lane. But with 2.5 minutes plus that extra lap remaining of this race, not long left at all, so Torelli has done everything he needs to do in this race. He unfortunately obviously got knocked fairly early in and lost a lot of time indeed. But since then, he's fought his way back up through the order and managed to retake the lead at the prime time. However, the car sat there in 3rd place will get a 5-second time penalty for disrespecting track limits, so potentially in his haste to catch the sparring duo up the road, Anthony Gerardo unfortunately has a 5-second time penalty to add on at the end of the race, and at the moment that would only drop him down to 4th place, so not too bad at all really if you're Gerardo. If he gets told that, he will obviously try and push forward as best he can and try and minimise the positional loss. David Pouget, whether it's just a mark on his tyre, that front left wheel looked maybe slightly odd, so we'll have to wait and see once he reappears. No, it is completely fine. It could just be a mark on the wheel that was a potential cause for concern. But Torelli, having got in the lead on the lap prior, is continuing to pull away. The debris has disappeared from the exit of turn 2, so I can only assume either one of our brilliantly brave Hungaroring marshals has run out there and got it, or unfortunately somebody has hit it and could potentially have tyre issues now for a short while. But this will be the final lap on the timer, so the penultimate lap of the race, and then it will all come down to that final lap. David Pouget once again up on 2 wheels. We saw it all day yesterday, we're seeing it all day today. Up on 2 wheels through the chicane, and it really does work for him. He's pulled in 1/10 of a second throughout this lap, so Pouget pushing hard, Torelli pushing just as, but the lead gap still not separated by too much. And Gerardo, of course, he's got to be careful of track limits now, because he does have that penalty to be applied at the end of the race. At the moment, the gap between himself and the car behind is 4.6 seconds, so he just needs a little bit of time to try and work his way away. However, now adding to the 10-second penalty for the jump start, now a 5-second time penalty goes to Jerzy Spinkovic, so 15 seconds will be added to Jerzy's time come the end of the race, and that will drop him down into what is 21st place by the looks of that. On to the final lap of the race we go. Torelli still leading from David Pouget, and then it's Anthony Gerardo carrying that 5-second time penalty. Isn't doing too bad at the moment. 4.7 seconds is going to have to be a quick lap from Gerardo if he wants to gain and sort of minimise any sort of time loss. But Nicolas Milan into the pit lane for his drive-through penalty, so naturally he's going to drop down the order, unfortunately. But all eyes on our leader, Torelli, through turn 2 once again. And then down the hill, the quick right at turn 3. And then he's back up the hill for the blind left of turn 4. A brilliant, brilliant corner. You've got to be so committed, especially in these little Renault Clios. So you only see the apex by the time you should be turning in. So it really is, you just got to trust your track knowledge and hope that it works. Nicolas Millar said he would drop down to 24th place. Yeah, 21st place, pardon me. He has dropped down to 24th place, unfortunately. But at the moment, leading the Challengers Cup is Adrian Schimpf. He's in 5th place overall. Like I say, obviously leading that Challengers Cup. Leading the Racers Cup is Luca Franca. He's in what is 13th place, the number 91 machine, and leading the Racers Cup class. But leading overall, the man on your screens, Gabriele Torelli, really not too far away from ticking another win in the book and adding yet more silverware to his collection. But through the final corner, nice and easy, you can see the white gloves on the steering wheel, just how smooth his inputs are, how much mechanical sympathy he's got with that car, just to try and sort of look after it all the way to the line. But through the final corner for the final time this weekend, and the final time in race 2 of the weekend here at Hungaroring, goes Gabriele Torelli. He will take the checkered flag this time by. So Gabriele Torelli wins race 2 here at Hungaroring, followed by David Pouget. Will it be Gerardo? Will it be Pekar in 3rd place? We will wait for drivers to cross the line. It will be Gerardo, only just. He had to be 5 seconds clear to overcome that 5-second time penalty. However, he might have had a penalty applied yet further, because it came up as a 5-second time penalty. And as soon as that was applied, he remained in 3rd. But since then, he has dropped all the way down to 7th place. So Anthony Gerardo, it looks like a sort of 10-second time penalty, maybe even a 15, unfortunately, that's dropped him right the way down the order. So that is a, yeah, by the looks of it, it's a 15-second time penalty Gerardo has been gifted. But Gabriele Torelli won the race. 2nd was David Pouget. Thomas Pekar inherited the final step on the podium. And it was Adrian Schimpf finishing 4th overall, winning the Challengers Cup. Pierre Bradot finishing in 5th and finishing 2nd in the Challengers Cup. Anthony Gerardo finds himself in 6th place. Alejandro Schimpf finishes in 7th, but 3rd in the Challengers Cup. Here are the confirmed results. Torelli wins and takes to the top step once again ahead of David Pouget. Thomas Pekar finished in 3rd, ahead of Adrian Schimpf, Pierre Bradot and Anthony Gerardo. Alejandro Schimpf finished in 7th, ahead of Gabor team Cristian Ricciarini and Nikola Milkovic. Then is Jacopo Cimenez and Luca Franca, ahead of Andrea Stucchi and Leonardo Arduini, followed by Guillaume Mael. Of course, the Luca Franca, the winner of the Racers Cup. So it was a brilliant race for those top 15 drivers. We will wait for the next lot to come through, and it is Lantos Sabolks finishing in 16th, ahead of Jerzy Spinkovic. Unfortunately, having all of those time penalties applied, he was racing up at the top, finished in 17th. Then it was Damiano Puccetti, followed by Benjamin Kovas. Then it was Nicolas Millar with a drive-through penalty. Got himself from 24th to 20th on the final lap of the race, ahead of René Stimets, Henrik Seibel and Lionel Vigueur. And your final finisher was Stefan Poldam and Daniel Nifola, unfortunately retiring early on in the race. There is Gabriele Torelli just working his way through turn 13 to enter the pit lane on his right-hand side, and he will take his spot in the sort of winner's circle down in the pit lane, park in front of the #1 board and celebrate another win for himself. He's had a sterling season so far, scoring very, very consistently, and I'm sure he'll slowly have to upgrade his trophy cabinet the way it's going at the moment. I'd imagine it is rather full of Clio Cup trophies, but there is Torelli into the winner's circle, and the rest of the team from Ragoni Kos all sat there celebrating with him. Over the moon with that one is Gabriele Torelli. So very, very well done to Mr. Torelli. Brilliant race, celebrates with the team. It's another job well done from Gabriele. Out of the car is it is car number 1, Gerardo, that's down there. Whether he's been made aware of the penalty, I don't know. So I think just trying to confirm results at the moment with multiple members of staff at Renault. But here is how the race played out with a few highlights for you. So it was a good start from David Pouchet, poor start from Gabriele Torelli. That allowed Gerardo to work his way up into second place by the time we got to turn 1. And as far as David Pouchet was concerned, it was plain sailing. All he had to do was continue to pull away, and that is exactly what he did. It was all change in the background. Car number 125, Jerzy Spinkovic, immediately trying to make his mark. Nicolas Milau, as we were 4 wide in towards turn 1. Nicolas Milau on the very inside had to jump on the brakes and lost a position or two. Because of that. In towards turn 3, however, turn 2, we saw Gabriele Torelli went very, very wide. There's then 2 or 3 other cars almost spinning in unison as well. Thankfully, we managed to continue on without too much of an issue. Nicolas Milan literally carving his way up through the order and past Pierre Bradot. This is where it all went wrong. Nicolas Milan forced wide. This time they make it through. They weren't so lucky later on in the race. Pierre Bradot also having a great battle. This time it was with Adrian Schimpf, the Challengers Cup winner. So they were fighting away for a number of laps. Once again, door-to-door. Nicolas Milan just wanted to get by and carry on. Couldn't quite do it, however. Very wide in the background is Jerzy Spinkovic. He was fighting away with Alejandro Schimpf. And this time they weren't so lucky. Nicolas Milan late on the brakes, forced all the way around the outside. Couldn't get the car slowed down and straight into the side of Pierre Bradot, unfortunately. And this was the change for the lead. Gabriele Torelli late on the brakes, up the inside once again. And David Pouchet, he did what he could to hold it around the outside. Couldn't quite get the position sort of stuck. But across the line to take the win was Gabriele Torelli ahead of David Pouchet and Thomas Pekar. But my name is Jack Werrell. I've been joining you through everything, sort of running you through everything this weekend. Thank you very much for joining me in the commentary box. And from everybody here at Renault and the Hungaroring, I wish you a very, very good evening. Bye-bye.